Here we go, 49ers off-season live, getting into the chat, a little Q&A with what's going on with your San Francisco 49ers. I already see folks jumping into the chat. Appreciate you. We love you. Let's get this thing going right now.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker with you at BD Peacock at Eric_Crocker. Thanks for jumping in with us on this live episode of Locked On 49ers to end the week. And thanks for making us your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Matt says it's about time, BD. Sorry, we thought we were going live at 5:05. We went live at 5:15 instead. I'm sorry. We were recording other podcasts for next week. We already got the Spencer Burford, Nick Zakel Scouting Report podcast in the bank. That'll be coming for you first thing Monday morning on the audio pods, maybe up Sunday night for you on the YouTube channel for your viewing pleasure as we go through the off season here. And I'm sure some folks are, a lot of people already fired up in the chat. That's right. Hit that like button. Appreciate all you jumping on with us here. Let's talk 49ers, man. Let's talk about what's going on with the 49ers as long as everyone's arms are fit enough to do that. Croc, how's your arm fitness today?
My arm fitness, I still have to work it out to be good for the extended period of 2 back-to-back podcasts.
That's the thing, is like when you first start out podcasting, you don't have enough arm fitness to do 2 podcasts in one day. But Croc, now since we are seasoned professionals, we can do 2, we can do 3 podcasts in a day. This is number 4 actually for me today. And you know what it's like to have one of those big days where not only do you do your regular 2 or 3 podcasts, but you're doing extras as well. Got a lot going on this weekend. I'm moving. You're going to start seeing a different background. I'm going to be in a different home office doing my podcast from my new home studio in my new home. So that's exciting stuff. That'll be happening.
And I'll be flying to California tomorrow. And I got a crazy little stretch. So my wife is flying into LA, but she doesn't fly until Saturday. And it's cheaper for me to rent a vehicle. I'm not going to say why, but it's cheaper for me to rent a car. All right. So I'm actually flying into Sacramento tomorrow after my daughter's little kindergarten graduation. I get on the flight, go out there. I pick up my son, take him out to eat, do some things or whatever. And tomorrow's my birthday too. So then I know, right? Birthday. Where's the birthday cake?
Always around the football at that time. Made a great catch.
Where's the birthday cake Built Bars? I ate them all, but I need some for my birthday, man. I'm trying to eat
those birthday cake Built Bars for today. Croc, I didn't realize, man. Happy birthday. That's awesome. You're going to be 35, is that right?
35, man. 35 years old. I'm the last of the tourists. So, tourist season comes to an end on the 20th. I'm the very last one. So, birthday tomorrow. But anyways, I fly into Sacramento tomorrow. I pick up my son, take him out to eat. And then I drop him back off because he has to track me the next day. Hang out with some buddies. And then the next morning, my daughter has a soccer game out there. So then I go to her soccer game. She has 2 soccer games. Then I catch a flight from Sacramento to LAX and get my wife and my daughter just to drive back to Stockton from LA in a rental car. And then my daughter's birthday is Sunday. And right after her birthday, I got to hit the road, drive back to LA and fly back to Arkansas on Monday. Busy little stretch there.
It's a crazy life we lead. Happy birthday, Croc. I'm sure it's going to be a lot of fun with you. And man, you've been making a ton of trips to California from Arkansas. You got those frequent flyer miles going. That's for sure. Frequent car renter miles as well. Hopefully you get that car rental this time.
I got the car rental, but I drive the little tiny cars.
Okay.
Here's the dangerous thing. When you do rent a car that's not like what you drive, and not like I have this fancy car or anything like that, but I have a Dodge Charger with a Hemi, and I'm used to being, if I pull out somewhere and I step on the gas, I accelerate. When you have one of these little Nissan Kicks, because I'm in California trying to save gas, and I'm thinking, I'm gonna pull out, and then the car just doesn't pick up that speed or it doesn't accelerate. it's a little dangerous. I've had to learn, like, okay, you're not driving in your Charger.
Dude, same thing. And look, I drive a Mazda CX-5, so it's not a sports car or anything like that. It's not a Hemi, okay, but it goes pretty good, and that's what I liked about it again versus all the other cars that were in its class. And I test drove everything that was like a similar sort of a smaller SUV, right? But that one jams, and you can get out and go. But the same thing happens to me when I'm renting a car. And bless you, Croc. When I'm renting a car, same thing happens. You get this little car and it doesn't go. And I'm used to being able to jam a little bit. And so, yeah, I could see how that could happen. You got to be safe out there though in California, Croc, without that Hemi. Make sure you give a wide berth and you have enough space to get out there in that lane and use that build-up speed, right? Because that's the difference in being a dynamic athlete and having burst versus having build-up speed.
Yeah, man, you gotta know your weaknesses, your strengths and weaknesses. The strength in that Nissan kick I usually get when I get to a little rental car spot, great on gas mileage. Weakness, acceleration, it lacks a little bit.
Yeah, lacks acceleration and lacks in top speed on top of it, but it's more like a try-hard slot receiver, right? How about Jeffrey's question about Trey Lance? He says, bro, I can't wait. Not even a question. This is a statement. Bro, I can't wait till Trey shuts these people up, Niner gang. The more I'm thinking about the arm fitness thing, and I do want to pull up the tweet because we talked about it on yesterday's show, and Ryan Harris, the former NFL offensive lineman, works for CBS Sports, clarified on Twitter today, Thursday, earlier.
Kinda.
About what he meant by arm fitness, because we were wondering, what does that even mean, arm fitness? At least we know what we can mock now, because we know what it means. And hold on, let me see if I can share this.
He clarified it, but it still sounds kind of. I don't want to say stupid. I don't want to say that, but it's just I don't understand it. Still, we're talking about a guy that played 2.5 games.
Yeah. So here's. If you guys can read that on the screen right now on YouTube, he said, arm fitness, the ability to consistently throw the football all season long and beyond to the playoffs. This can be fixed through focused offseason training and a commitment to arm care. So essentially what Ryan Harris was saying is the message he got from folks within the organization was that Trey Lance hit basically the rookie wall last year, and that his arm fitness wasn't up to the task into the playoffs, of which he didn't play, by the way. And here's the thing. So we know it's not, because we were talking about, I was like, what does that mean? Does that mean how good his arm is, how accurate it is? It's none of that. It's more like dead arm, right? So he hit the rookie wall is what Ryan Harris is trying to say. But we saw him throw in week 17. Trey Lance's week 17 arm was more fit than Jimmy Garoppolo's week 16, 18, 19, 20, and 21 arm, right? So what the hell are you talking about, Croc?
So again, that's why it's still confusing, because one, we didn't get a chance to see him for an entire season. Right now, after this year, if you say that and go into the offseason, like, man, he lost some velocity on his throws. Man, he struggled to make those far hash throws, on the deep out routes. Oh, the ball wasn't popping out of his hand. Then I say, oh, man, arm fatigue, definitely has to train that. But let's say, hypothetically speaking, that's what people were saying about him in practice. I don't know. I didn't see quite that week 17. I thought the ball came out of his hand fine. I mean, there were some, like, wobblers, but even then, it's still, like, a fast wobbler. Like, I don't know. I think people are trying to – they're reaching a little bit, creating these different narratives surrounding Trey Lance. Again, Trey Lance – he very well could be a trash quarterback. I have no idea, right? I've seen good. I've seen bad. I've seen some things where it's like, hey, he can build off of that. But I didn't see anything from him where it's like he lacks some sort of ability to do anything, whether it's throw with, timing and rhythm, whether it was throw the deep ball, whether it was – I didn't see issues in ability at any point. Now, consistency, yeah, we can say that, but I don't know. It's kind of hard. I'm trying to give people the benefit of doubt with their leaks and their the things that they're reporting, and say, you know what? Okay, maybe I could see this. I could see that. I can't see what he's saying. Now, what Chris Sims said, where he had Trey Lance in his rankings, I think there's a little bit more validity to that. than there is any of the other things that I've heard.
Look, he's not a perfect prospect. We said yesterday, we don't know what Trey Lance is going to become. We have no clue. But some of the narratives and some of the things we're hearing are just weird. And talking about his arm fitness, like that doesn't even make sense and has no bearing on what the future holds for Trey Lance. Like, okay, like let's say if it's completely true, he had dead arm, whatever. We see it a lot. You see it a lot with baseball pitchers too. Young prospects get called up. They play shorter seasons in college and high school. They get called up. They play shorter seasons in the minor leagues, and their arm isn't strong enough to go play 162 game major league season. So they start out in the bullpen maybe, or they work up their strength to where they can be an everyday frontline starter. That you see that all the time. It's a little bit different with college or with football players going from college to the NFL, but Trey Lance didn't play the season before he got drafted, right? So he had that one exhibition game. So maybe he didn't throw a lot. Maybe his arm wasn't as primed as it possibly could be. And then he went through a long, grueling process of training, pro days, and then going into a long rookie season. So yeah, maybe he did hit dead arm, and that could be totally a real thing. But that's like, who cares? His rookie season's over now. Go strengthen your arm in the offseason and come back next year. Has no bearing on what kind of a quarterback he's going to be in the future. So why would you bring it up? And so that's why it's so obvious and so clear that some people are trying so hard to reach for some negative thing to say about Trey Lance, because I've never, ever heard anybody bring up somebody's arm fitness before in the NFL. Like that is a total new one. And
I've heard it. I just can't remember where. Now, they didn't say that. Oh, I know what it was. Dak Prescott in training camp.
Coming off his injury.
Coming off the injury, he had some kind of arm fatigue where he had to rest for a little bit. And that was the only other time I've actually heard that.
You hear it a lot with other players at other positions hitting the rookie wall, and running backs and other positions. It's a longer, more grueling NFL season than it was in college. So he wouldn't be the first guy if that actually happened to Trey Lance. So it's just a weird thing to even bring up now, because it's like, who cares? The last season's over anyway. We're on to a new season. He rested, and now he's training for a new year. So the arm fitness is like not even an issue in something. And the other thing is, as Tobin points out here, and we talked about it yesterday, we saw him play in week 17 at the end of the year, and his arm was fine. His arm's better than Jimmy's. Right. So what the hell are we talking about?
And when he threw that slant, he threw a few in there. Like when you actually go back and watch it, because we saw some of the plays, we saw some of the hits and misses and things like that. But when you actually go back and watch it, and you see some of the throws that he did make, there were a few where it was like, oh, that was a missile. Oh, that was a missile. And you see some throws where it's like, oh, that was good. Okay, he threw that with timing and rhythm. Like a lot of the things that people say he can't do, he does it. Now again, consistency, that's different. But people say these things about him as if he just is this quarterback, that the kid that doesn't know how to play the position at all. And that's not the case.
Or that he's done whatever he was as a rookie. I can't get better than that. He'll never get better with timing. He'll never get better reading defenses. He'll never learn more of the playbook that he knew as a rookie. His arm will never get stronger than it was as a rookie, right? So,
and I say the same thing about let's say like Mac Jones. Like there are a lot of people that try to put a ceiling and cap on what Mac Jones can potentially be, and I'd say yeah, from an athletic standpoint, but that doesn't mean that he can't refine his craft as a pure quarterback and decision making and understanding of defenses and things like that to really take his game to the next level. Like, I don't think whatever we saw from Mac Jones, like this past season, like that's all he is, So it's not just a Trey Lance thing with me. I think whether it's Mac Jones, Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, they all threw more interceptions and touchdowns. I don't think that's all they're going to be, But I include Trey Lance in that. But for whatever reason, the narrative is Trey Lance is the only one that, no. They don't like it. Nobody in the building. They all hate him. Like, all right, man. Just let the kid play. And we come off as like having to defend this guy because it is unfair. And I think I take the same approach kind of with Jimmy Garoppolo, where I think Jimmy gets a lot of unfair criticism. I know what Jimmy is and what he isn't. And I think that the way that he has kind of been attacked, because I think people they're ready to kind of just push him out of San Francisco. I think that's a little unfair. But he's not like this great quarterback either that you just can't replace.
This just in, Croc. I'm looking at Ryan Harris's Twitter account now, and it looks like Ryan Harris is going to be out for a while because he injured himself with that reach of a take. And look, he might have heard that. It's a reach from whoever told him that, even if I don't think he would be making that up. It's just a bizarre thing to make up. So
that's the thing. I don't think that stuff is being made up. I think there is someone saying it. I think what it has to, like, where are you hearing it from? He says players now, again, telephone, and we brought that up the other day, right? Where everyone played telephone in elementary school, where you say one thing to somebody and then that gets to somebody else, and then that gets somebody else. By the time it gets back to you, it's completely different than what you said to start with. So maybe a player says something along the lines of, oh man, like, there's some areas where he needs to improve. And by the time that got to Ryan Harris or anyone else, it's this completely different message.
All right, we'll talk a little bit more about Trey Lance if some things pop up in the chat a little bit later on. But we got to move on to some other subjects. Got a good couple of questions here about what's going on at strong safety for the 49ers, about Danny Gray's comp with a former 49er player. All that coming up in a bit, but I want to let the folks out there know about Bet Online. Continues to be the number one source for all of your betting needs and sports information this season. Find all the latest odds, news, sports developments, including this year's NBA playoffs. Go Warriors, Major League Baseball scores, fights, UFC, boxing, and of course, NFL futures. You can bet on offensive, defensive rookie of the years, coach of the year. You can bet on the 49ers to win Super Bowl 57. You can bet on the Super Bowl winner coming out of the NFC West. Tons of NFL futures. Even though there's not an NFL season, you can bet on it. All of it at Bet Online, your continued source for all sports wagering information, live betting, playoffs, esports, and more. So use your desktop or mobile device to go to Bet Online today to learn more about all of the trends and action. Bet Online, where the game starts. How about brownie batter puffs? Croc already ate up all of his birthday cake puffs, but there are some brownie batter puffs on their way to Arkansas for Croc, on their way to California for me. If you love brownies, you probably do the thing like I do, where you lick the spatula clean and half of the brownie batter is gone before it even makes it into the oven. Well, you're in luck, because Built has a new creation, and this one is better than ever. The brownie batter puff. You heard me right. This puff takes protein bars to a whole new level, and they're available right now on Built.com. Now, there were brownie batter puffs for a very short time on Built.com about 2 months ago, and they went very quickly, and I have a feeling that's going to do the same. So you're going to want to get to Built.com right now for brownie batter puffs. But unlike brownies, these brownie batter puff bars are only 140 calories with 17 grams of protein and only 7 grams of sugar. So it is the perfect pick-me-up, and you can feel good about reaching for a Built bar. It's a treat that you can feel good about, and you're not going to reach for those healthy treats if you don't feel good about eating them, and you will with Built bars. So go to Built.com and use our promo code for 15% off. That is promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your order. Again, you can get brownie batter puffs, you can get birthday cake puffs, you can get any of the original flavors of Built bars. You can even get a mixed box of Built bars. All you got to do is use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. Thanks again, everybody, for making Locked On 49ers your first listen every day. Make sure you're checking out everything else the network has to offer, like Locked On NFL Draft featuring Eric Crocker, like the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show Daily featuring myself. You got to go to the Locked On NFL channel to subscribe, and that is the home of the new Peacock and Williamson NFL Show on YouTube, along with the Locked On NFL podcast featuring Ross Jackson, Chris Carter, Tony Wiggins, and the gang. Tons of great stuff coming at you all the time on the Locked On Podcast Network. There is no off-season for real fans, and there's no off-season here at the Locked On Podcast Network. Croc, who is starting at strong safety?
Woo, that's a good one. I'm going to go ahead and say Talanoa Hufanga. I like the guys that, I don't want to call them overachievers, but he's the guy that is like, man, I lack at something, but I'm so strong mentally and my preparation is so on point that I'm going to force my way into the starting lineup. And I feel like he's one of those type of guys.
he is absolutely that type of guy. And if there's a position and there's a type of player that can succeed, even if they're a step slow, maybe it is strong safety. And it is a player that has the instincts, that knows where to be, that can be there a half step quicker because of his mind. And we saw a lot of that as a rookie. And he was sort of ahead of the game, even as a rookie, from the first time he jumped on the field. Because we had questions, Croc. We're like, man, this guy looks like a linebacker with the way he moves. But he slimmed down to be fast, to play linebacker. And it's clear
to be fast.
To be fast, right? To be faster than what we saw on tape at USC. And maybe he was closing a little bit quicker. He's still better going forward than backward. I still worry about it. He got beat a few times, specifically in that, what, it was the Cardinals game. Is that the one where Christian Kirk got him, right? And
Christian Kirk is going to get a lot of people on that, but you're definitely going to get Hufanga.
He's a $19 million a year receiver, Croc. He's going to get some. So, yeah, I feel like they should have done more to give him more competition and not just give him the job. Maybe that's George Odom. I don't really know what at all to expect from George Odom. It's going to be fun watching him in camp. But I agree with you, Croc. I think right now the plan is Talanoa Hufanga's the guy.
They probably really like him. Feels like a Shanahan guy.
Yeah, absolutely. Tobin wants to know, can Hufanga improve his weaknesses? See, that's what I have a problem with, because he's not going to be faster than what he is. He could play faster, but he already plays pretty fast. Like he
plays fast and
be in the right
great anticipation.
Yeah. So maybe he can improve that a little bit, but he's not going to improve his top speed.
If he improves the film study and understands where guys want to attack him and understand how to cover up for that wherever he's kind of liable in that, then that can help, right? Like look at Richard Sherman. Not the most athletic cornerback out there, but I mean, he is going to be a Hall of Famer. Why is Sherman going to be a Hall of Famer? Because of his ability to kind of really be able to anticipate routes and understand where he was weak at and how to cover up that weakness.
So George Odom, I think, will have a say, and he'll at least have a chance to compete. But Odom himself said the 49ers told him they brought him in to play special teams and then compete on defense. So I think he'll start out behind Hufanga when they start doing reps at training camp. But what about Tarvarius Moore? I see him more of as a free safety and a pure backup to Jimmy Ward. But could he enter the conversation? Or Angelo wants to know, does he even get cut or traded?
Well, I mean, it sounds like it's going to be kind of deep. If I had to guess, I think they're good at safety with where they're at. But we know it's not always that way, right? Like somebody's going to get cut. There's going to be a surprise cut. I don't even know if he get traded, because who's going to trade for Tarvarius Moore? Now, we know who he is, but I don't think any other team really – I mean, obviously, their scouting departments, they know who he is, but I don't think they care. So if he just gets let go, there might be somebody that's like, hey, well, we did like him when he was coming out. Let's go ahead and, pick him up. But trading for him, I say that's a little bit less likely, especially with him coming off of injury and not really having starts under his belt. And when he did it was like he was playing cornerback.
We've got some Tart disrespect here from Brash Cat, who says, everybody acting like Tart played at a Pro Bowl level last year. How much is the play really going to fall off this year?
Okay. So, one, I remember watching Tart, and I was just like, man, Tart's film is kind of boring. But his film was boring because more times than not, he just did what he was supposed to do. Now, he wasn't taking a whole lot of risk. It's like, hey, I want you to do this, and this guy does that, you run with this, or wall off this guy and come down and do this. Tart does all those things. So while it might not be Pro Bowl level or anything that splashy, he does his job. So I think that is hard to replace someone that typically is in position to do their job. Now, you have a hiccup here and there, you have no defensive back. It's going to be perfect throughout the entire season. But for the most part, you can actually rely on Tart to do his job and be where he's supposed to be.
I agree with that. And if I'm the 49ers, I still bring back Tart, because they're razor thin at safety now because one injury, and someone's going to get hurt somewhere. And now you don't even really you're not too deep at free safety and strong safety. So that one really surprised me, actually, that they didn't bring anybody in to compete with those guys. And I do think that Talanoa Hufanga is going to get the first shot, but I do think it would be a mistake to just hand him the job too. And even to believe that Odom is going to be a lot more than he was with his previous team. The Odom thing kind of almost reminds me of Jerick McKinnon. Remember when the 49ers spent a bunch of money on Jerick McKinnon? He was like the first big signing they made in the offseason. It was like, well, he's a third down back.
Yeah.
Why are you expecting so much more from him than what he just did for 4 years with his other team? And this is not a knock on George Odom because they brought him in to be a special teamer and he can give you value there. But it would be, I don't know why you would expect that he's going to give you a ton more from a team who, by the way, just went and drafted the guy that we thought the Niners would take at 93. They took him at 95, Nick Cross, as a safety to replace George Odom. So that's where their mind was, and they just had the guy the 49ers signed and might start as strong safety.
Well, I did see my guy Darius Butler tweeted out when the 49ers signed Odom. When the 49ers signed Odom, he was like, he was kind of upset with the Colts about letting Odom go and felt like he was a pivotal part of what they do, whether it's on special teams or as, a guy that can fill in on defense. He thought like, no, you pay him that amount of money, you bring him in. So he had some sort of impact for sure on that locker room.
I've seen a couple folks in the chat point out the rookie undrafted free agent O'Neal out of Texas A&M, correct?
We haven't done it yet. Let's hold off. Let's hold off on that.
You want to give him just a little teaser? Because we haven't done the full scouting report, but I know you've watched a lot of him because you're the DB expert. I haven't watched a ton of him. The only thing I do know is his biggest highlight on the season is getting run over by the 49ers third-round draft pick running back Ty Davis Price, because that's on Ty Davis Price's. That's the first play on his reel is running directly through O'Neal's soul.
Not many people want to take on Ty Davis Price in the open field. Like when he has a two-way go and he can hit you with that speed and he can really run, he's bringing a lot of oomph. He played at a heavy weight. So I don't knock O'Neal for that. But watching him, and again, I got to dig a little bit deeper, but I ain't see anything that was like, oh, he can hang his hat on this. That's what I look for first. Like, where does a guy excel at? What can, how's that skill set translate to the NFL? And let's say like Hufanga. At the very least, you'd say Hufanga is a playmaker. He's very active. He's going to be around the ball. Now, he might lack in athleticism, but he does things to put himself in position to make plays. O'Neal, from the games, I watched a couple games so far, and I was just like, I see why he went undrafted.
And he did go undrafted, so every team in the NFL wasn't really fighting to go draft O'Neal. But he does have some talent, and we'll see what he turns out to be. He made a nice one-handed catch in rookie minicamp, which was nice to see, showing off some ball skills there. And when it comes to Odom, 49ers breakdown here says Odom made 100% of his tackles in the box last season, didn't miss one. In addition, he's got some good film in coverage, including picking off Josh Allen. And I'm not saying that George Odom can't play or is not a good player. I'm just saying you don't sign a guy who's played mostly special teams and expect a ton more from him. So if you signed him and you're cool with him being a special teams demon and a backup safety, then good. And if he gives you more, awesome. But I wouldn't expect a lot more. That's all I'm saying.
Right. And I think that's the right way to go about it, right? On Monday, they're going to hear the episode of us talking about drafting tackles to play guard in these different positions. But they signed Odom because, hey, this is an area we need to improve on. They identified it as an area of weakness, and I'm talking about the special teams, and they definitely want to put as much resources there as possible to improve it. And getting a guy like Odom, that's them showing they're putting a premium on special teams and that unit.
All right, I want to get to a question from Kyle earlier about Danny Gray, but first, Angelo says, Ty Davis Price, 1,100 yards, 6 touchdowns. What do you think? Over under on 1,100 yards for the rookie running back?
Under.
Chef goes even further to say the next Frank Gore. That's blasphemy. Get that off of my. Get that.
You
off
can't say that, but I get what he's saying. There are some similarities in their run style.
Yep, I think there's some subtle nuance. He's not just some brute that runs straight and knocks people over. There's some subtleness to his feet, and when he hits the holes that we liked, that we talked about in our, go back and check out our scouting report episode on Ty Davis Price. Some stuff to like. I just didn't see anything with that wide zone that made me think he was going to be good at that. And so are the 49ers just completely scrapping their run game with all these guards they're drafting with their third round running backs the last couple of years? Are they really, really, really trying to do something completely different in the running game? That would surprise me. And we've seen throughout Shanahan's career, we've seen it with the 49ers, and we saw it again last year. The guys that are going to be really successful in the Kyle Shanahan running game are the guys that can press the edge and then find that crease, put their foot in the ground, and go upfield. We saw Debo do it. We saw Raheem Mostert do it. We saw Matt Breida do it. And we saw Elijah Mitchell do it last year. And that's not Ty Davis-Price. So to me, Ty Davis-Price, which is one of the reasons I didn't like the pick a lot, I think he's good at what he does, but that's going to be a small piece of the rotational running back pie, is the short yardage inside power stuff. And maybe that's enough to get the 49ers over the hump. Maybe they just didn't like how good they were in short yardage, and that'll be enough to keep drives alive and put the ball in the end zone and convert some first downs. But I just don't see him as being a really good fit, just like with last year with Aaron Banks. I just didn't see him as a really good fit for the outside zone stuff, unless they really are going to completely go away with it. And there's some clues that maybe that's what they're trying to do.
Well, they have incorporated inside zone. So even though, like we'll say it's power because it's kind of running more straight A gap, B gap, but inside zone, everybody's still kind of moving him, reading it. I think Ty Davis-Price runs that well. So, when you talk about like him having a fit in the inside zone, I think his vision for that is really, really good.
Let's finish this up, Croc, with a question from Kyle earlier. He says, do you see Emmanuel Sanders, the Steelers version of Emmanuel Sanders, in Danny Gray's game, the young Emmanuel Sanders?
I see more Mike Wallace, and that's the example I've used.
Same Steelers team, right?
Same Steelers team, but someone that definitely he can win vertically. I don't think anybody's ever been like, oh man, like Mike Wallace is a great route runner, but he was good. He was a good receiver, and there was a time where people would pay a premium for Mike Wallace and his services. So, I'd say he's a little bit more Mike Wallace, and Mike Wallace had some really good years. I think it was Antonio Brown that got Mike Wallace kind of pushed out of there a little bit.
I'm looking at Mike Wallace's stats right now. So he was a rookie in 2009 with the Steelers, and man, he was pretty darn good right away and had some big time downfield production. He had 19.4 yards per catch. He had 756 yards as a rookie on only 39 catches. That would be
crazy.
That would be awesome if Danny Gray gave you that, if you're the 49ers. And how about this? His next 2 years with the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2010 and 2011, he had 60 catches for 1,257 yards, 21 yards per catch. And then in 2011, 72 catches. This was his best year in his NFL career. 72 catches for 1,193 yards.
And they took his money and gave it to Antonio Brown.
Yep. Shameful. And then he ended up in Miami and kind of became a journeyman. Miami, Philadelphia, Baltimore at the end of his career, bounced around and became like that, number 2 outside deep threat. But the more I think about it, and he had a darn good career, because even after that, he had 830 yards, 930 yards, 862 yards. He only played 12 games. He had 473 yards in Minnesota one year. Then at age 30 in 2016, he had his last 1,000-yard season, 72 catches, 1,000 yards in Baltimore. And then had one more year in Baltimore with 748 yards, and then was kind of done in his last year as a 32-year-old in 2018 in Philly, where he only had a couple of targets.
I don't remember in Philly. So,
but dang, that was a heck of a run. 8 years from 2009 to 2017. Dude was actually, let me find out here. Dude was averaging 800, almost 900 yards a season, and almost 7 touchdowns a season.
Good receiver.
And 60 catches. I mean, that would be amazing if Danny Gray had that kind of career. But he has that kind of speed, that ability to take the top off. And Mike Wallace wasn't, necessarily a footwork demon, right? He wasn't that intermediate guy. It was just like, man, this dude can do one thing, and he does it as good as just about anybody in the league.
Right. So I also brought up like Ted Ginn, right? Like that type of guy that has that straight line speed. I think Ted Ginn never had the career as like Mike Wallace, but had the similar speed. But similarities there.
I'm getting excited about Danny Gray. I like that Mike Wallace comp.
I want to see it.
Because obviously that was with a younger Ben Roethlisberger who actually had the arm and can get him the ball down the field, and those Steelers teams chucked it. But maybe a little more power run game, a little more play action, bigger arm Trey Lance that can get the ball down the field. Maybe that's what we're talking about here with the Trey Lance 49ers.
Right. And you never know. That's why I'll never say what a player will be or won't be, right? Like, oh, this guy won't be this or he won't do that. I just evaluate where he's at right now, areas where I feel like he can improve. And if he does, he could be a terrific football player. And I think Danny Gray fits that.
Yeah, and I think Danny Gray, I don't know if he'll ever get to the level of what kind of a route runner Emmanuel Sanders was, because Emmanuel Sanders was pretty smooth. But I do think Danny Gray does have a little bit more of, while I don't know if he'll ever get there, but he needs to work on that intermediate game. But man, he can take a short pass to the house because of his speed if he's got a crease. And Emmanuel Sanders wasn't necessarily that either. So I'm trying to think of a player that was good down the field, but also had an ability to take short passes the distance. Because there's almost like you're either one or the other, right?
Yeah.
There's not a lot of players that had both of those and then sort of a gap in the middle of the field. And look, if Danny Gray can work on that too.
It would be like Julio Jones, right?
Like Julio Jones was so good in the middle of the field too. But like if Danny Gray could add that to his game too, and become like a really good route runner, or even just like a solid route runner and break off some of those dig routes that Kyle Shanahan loves to call in this offense, and, you know, be good on slants and be good off the line of scrimmage and be able to win with some of those short to intermediate routes. Because look out, because he's got the downfield speed. He can track the ball. And once he gets the ball in his hands, he can take off and hit a crease and go to the house like John Taylor.
Right. And I know you've thrown in that John Taylor.
I just saw that name pop up again in the chat. That's what reminded me of it. But yeah, he's got that John Taylor stride on those catch and run routes. Anyway, I don't know. It's a fun draft class for the 49ers. I feel a little bit better about this draft class than I did last year's draft class after round one, because last year, obviously, the Trey Lance thing made last year's draft class kind of crazy. But this year, obviously, I didn't love the running back pick, and we'll see who Ty Davis Price ends up being with the 49ers. But there's some excitement. There's some hit or miss with this class. Like Drake Jackson could go big. Danny Gray could go big. You could get a starting offensive lineman. You could get at least a starting nickel corner, maybe, with some of those picks. So it's sort of a boomer bust class. Or we could be talking about this draft class in a few years and be like, man, they're not really giving us much of anything except for some rotational pieces.
Yeah, look at my guy. I think that's my guy Mike from Nothing But Niners in the chat, and he says DG, aka Danny Gray, equals Mike Wallace. So I think he's on the same page as me. Like that type of football player. Now again, will he be Mike Wallace? We'll see, but he's that type of guy, right?
Oh, here's a good one. Dante Moncrief. I haven't heard that name in a long time. He was kind of a bust second round pick. I think he was part of that 2014 class with a bunch of superstar receivers and then some busts peppered in. And Dante Moncrief was one of those. Dante Moncrief was a lot more stiff though.
I liked him coming out of Ole Miss.
Yep, he was a little stiff. I wasn't as big on him. He went with the Broncos, right?
Colts.
Ooh, Colts. Yeah, I think you're right. He was the Colts. All right, we got to get out of here. Thanks, everybody, for joining us on the live chat. Thanks, everybody, for making Locked On 49ers your first listen every day. Make sure you're checking out the rest of the network has to offer, like Locked On NFL Draft featuring Eric Crocker and the Peacock and Williamson Show featuring myself and former NFL scout and ESPN scribe Matt Williamson. We are coming at you every day like we do here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's already in the bank. Make sure you're tuning in Monday for the latest Scouting Report episode on 49ers offensive line rookies, 4th rounder Spencer Burford, 6th rounder Nick Zakelj, and how they fit on the 49ers offensive line, which is going to be another really good training camp battle. Croc and I back with you then right here, Locked On 49ers.